everyone, my name is Dillon Gonzalez. I'm the editorial director of GeekVibesNation.com and also a co-host of the Home Dance Film Festival podcast. And welcome to a brand new episode of No Streaming Required, your weekly deep dive into all the latest and greatest in the world of physical media. We have a stellar show for you this week. It is one of my favorite times of the month. It is when we explore the Warner Archive, that we dive deep into one of the absolute best labels in the game, and we showcase their newer titles, as well as shining a spotlight on some of their older titles. Just because they're a few years old does not mean they deserve to be forgotten forever and stuff, because there are a lot of titles that you may not know about, that maybe you missed the first time around, that deserve that a little extra attention, and I want to give that to them. So I'm going to dive right in. We have a really good slate. I'm going to start with the new releases, and one that I was super excited about was For Your Consideration, because yes, the Warner Archive is more so known for catering to kind of the classic films like 30s and 40s and 50s, all the golden age classics, but they still do dabble in some of the 90s and 2000s, more recent releases, which I also really love. I'm a child of that era, and that this movie specifically is one that's been on my wish list for a long time. This is from Christopher Guest, who's done such classic mockumentaries as like Best in Show, Waiting for Guffman, or A Mighty Wind, which is also come out through the Warner Archive several years ago. And this one has been deeply in need of a Blu-ray upgrade. This is perfect for this time of year because this is set in the world of Hollywood, and more specifically Oscar season, and we are just really getting into the thick of Oscar season right now. And this is a story about a production, like a little dramatic production of like a historical film, where all the cast members, they don't really have any ideas of it becoming anything until there becomes a whiff of Oscar buzz. They hear that buzzword, and it really gets into their head, and it really just shifts all of their personalities, where everyone just believes that maybe this will be an Oscar-worthy hit, and how that kind of like attention on them kind of spirals out. It's hilarious. It's Christopher Guest writing this with Eugene Levy, but which both of them provide an audio commentary track for this release that is very insightful and funny. They have a really good banter on the commentary track, as well as some good insights, like actual insights into the production. But while this is not the absolute best Christopher Guest movie, because some of those classics I mentioned I do like more, this is still a very solid entry into the output, and I think a lot of Christopher Guest fans like myself have been wanting this to get the Blu-ray upgrade, and it looks really nice on Blu-ray. I will say this isn't up to like the absolute best looking Warner Archive disc, just because of the source. This was filmed in 16 millimeter and completed to a 2K digital intermediate. I believe this is just kind of like a simple presentation, an HD master of that 2K digital intermediate. That's probably been given a little bit of remastering, but it's kind of confined to the qualities that the 2K digital intermediate can provide and stuff. But it looks very nice. It retains the natural filmic elements to everything. Everything is crisp and detailed and just natural, and everything looks like it needs to. Just know that there's just kind of like some limitations to what this can look like, which is fantastic, but I just want to keep expectations in check. Sound wise, it also is very good. DTS 5.1 sound, the previous mentioned archival commentary track, and also 39 minutes of deleted materials, mostly deleted scenes, and a trailer. So I think most of these are special features from the DVD were ported over. Maybe like a photo gallery was omitted, but other than that, you have pretty much everything and the film in a good presentation. So people have been waiting for Your Consideration. They will be very pleased. This has a really great cast, just like I can see from the cast. Jane Levy, Fred Willard, Catherine O'Hara, Parker Posey, Ricky Gervais, so many people, Harry Shearer, packed, stacked cast, and a lot of great cameos too. Like John Krasinski has a random cameo. This was right before he hit with The Office, so make sure to check this out. If you're a fan, really nice Blu-ray presentation. Also one similarly that I've been requesting for a long time. I think I even emailed into the Warner Archive email back in the day saying I would hope they would release this. That is A Prairie Home Companion. This is the final film from Robert Altman, and it similarly has a sprawling cast, and while not a mockumentary, it is one that it kind of takes like a classic Altman approach where it's set around like a singular event. There's a lot of interweaving characters and stuff. It's set around this actual real life radio program, A Prairie Home Companion, that's been hosted by Garrison Keillor for years. I don't think so anymore because of some allegations. But back in the day, Garrison Keillor, who actually stars in here, this takes his framework of the actual Prairie Home Companion show and puts it in the fictional realm of this show hosting its final ever performance and stuff. So it brings all these characters together who are performers on the stage, and it shows the onstage performances as well as some backstage antics and stuff. And you have a really great cast. You have Meryl Streep, Woody Harrelson, John C. Reilly, Virginia Madsen, Tommy Lee Jones, Maya Rudolph, Lindsay Lohan, Lily Tomlin, Kevin Kline. A lot of great people in here. And I really like this film because it's not, unlike the Christopher Guest movie, it is very comedic, but it also has some more gentle, dramatic tones. So it's really a reflection, I think, on kind of the end of things. I wouldn't say dying necessarily, but kind of like finality. Especially with the end of this show being depicted on screen, there is like a literal kind of manifestation of like death kind of hovering over the show, which is played by Tommy Lee Jones in conversation with an angel played by Virginia Madsen, just kind of hovering around the stage and kind of talking to the characters. There's a lot of funny interactions, funny songs, but also some contemplative things. And it's a very strange movie, but really kind of right in line with what Robert Altman was delivering back in the time. I really miss him as a filmmaker. He was one of the greats, but this is a very respectable final film from him, and this has been given a Blu-ray upgrade finally. This similar to, but in a different way to, for your consideration, this was shot one of the kind of in the early days of HD video. So this is like an upscale of the original HD video content, which looks very nice. But I just, whenever you have a institution that you typically goes back to like the 35 millimeter negative and stuff, we don't have that here. It's just an upscale of the original source, but it is not one of those HD video sources that I've kind of reviewed from other labels from the early 2000s, which did look actually pretty horrendous. This is actually, you probably wouldn't be able to know. It's just a nice normal HD upscale. Looks very nice. I didn't notice anything in the way of like compression artifacts or weak black levels, anything like that. DTS 5.1 sound sounds really big and full. This does carry over the archival commentary track from Robert Altman and Kevin Kline. It's very great to hear kind of their dynamic and just learning about moments on set and how the script developed and like what moments that were kind of shifted around and added and all this stuff. It's a good time. You also have 35 minutes of kind of raw footage that was captured on stage. That's kind of just like uncut. You have a 49-minute making of featurette, 36 more minutes of live musical performances, and a trailer. So carried over the special features and really nice HD transfer. Prairie Home Companion, very much worth checking out in my opinion. Going way back to more of the bread and butter of Warner Archive, we're going to the actual Golden Age classics. We missed getting these out video-wise in time for Halloween, but we have a couple of horror movies that they released right at the end of October, the first of which is The Walking Dead with Boris Karloff. So this is kind of capitalizing a little bit on his kind of Frankenstein imagery, but it's a much different movie. It gives Karloff a bit more to work with performance-wise and emoting and all that stuff. He plays a character who kind of down on his luck. He is framed for a crime and he is convicted. He is sentenced to death of the crime by these kind of powerful figures. And but he is brought back to life by kind of a scientist in order to kind of get his revenge on these people who framed him. That's kind of the bare essence of the plot. But it's actually quite a somber movie, and just the way what Karloff brings to this movie, I think there's a lot more there than just kind of your typical old school like monster movie, which, not to denigrate those movies, there's classics and there's a lot of emotional stuff in there. I just think this is almost more closer to kind of a noir, more so than a horror movie, but there's some creepy elements, of course, and Karloff does a really nice job. I like this movie quite a bit. It's very short. It's an hour and 6 minutes long, but there's some nice special features to kind of beef up the overall value of this package. You do get a new commentary track, and along with the archival commentary track, so 2 commentary tracks, a 38-minute documentary on director Michael Curtiz. This also appeared on the Casablanca 4K disc. If you have that, you'll also notice that on that. But it's a great documentary on Michael Curtiz, who we'll be hearing about in a couple more titles. We have 2 cartoons that have been remastered and a trailer. So good selection of special features. Classic horror is always a good addition to spooky season viewing or anytime season viewing. So Warner Archive has really hit it out of the park, and they have done the same with another horror title, The Return of Dr. X. Warner Archive several years ago released the original Dr. X movie. This is The Return of Dr. X, which doesn't really connect to the original film in any meaningful way. It's more so capitalizing on the title's success. But it is interesting in its own right. This involves a reporter noticing that some people who he thought were dead coming back to life, and kind of trying to figure out the mystery behind these people who may or may not have been reanimated, and there's some creepy doctors afoot, which the creepy doctor who is afoot is played by none other than Humphrey Bogart. His only horror film. He did not like that he was in this film. He kind of disparaged this film whenever he had the chance, and it is wild that he is in this movie. I was trying to see if there was like a good picture of him on the back. There's not really, but he has like a white streak in his hair. He looks unlike any Humphrey Bogart you've seen before. So just for that reason alone, for the novelty of seeing Humphrey Bogart in a horror film, just acting kooky, great. Love it. Just buy it immediately. But it's also a fun enough film. It's not a classic, I would say, but it's fun. It's just kind of like cheesy, and it's pretty good. This one's also pretty short. It's an hour and 2 minutes. But once again, you got some nice supplemental material. You got a commentary track, 2 remastered cartoons, and a trailer. This like The Walking Dead comes from a 4K restoration of the original camera negative. Both of these transfers look fantastic. No encoding issues. They've been just, all the damage and stuff have been eradicated. Everything just looks nearly flawless, outside of maybe a couple optical transitions. This has been handled very well. Audio's in good shape considering the vintage. You may hear a little bit of hollowness here and there, maybe a little bit of weakness in some of the orchestral like high notes, but overall very good, solid presentation for horror fans. The Return of Dr. X. Get it for this Humphrey Bogart inclusion. It is wild. My final horror film, and my final new film from Warner Archive, we have The Beast with 5 Fingers. This is an interesting one. This involves a wealthy man who dies, and people start to think that they see a disembodied hand that belonged to the dead man kind of wreaking havoc around the house. And weird things start happening around the house. So that's it has Peter Lorre in it, who's the ultimate kind of weirdo at classic Hollywood. I say that lovingly. I love Peter Lorre. And this movie it's fun. The ending is a little bit strange. I think how it kind of has a little bit of like a lighthearted ending to it, which kind of didn't quite gel with the rest of the tone. But overall, it is a solid movie, and it's been handled with care. This has also been given a 4K restoration of the original camera negative. Looks fantastic, like all the new releases. DTS 2.0 sound has a new commentary track, 2 cartoons that have been remastered, and a trailer. So The Beast with Five Fingers, make sure to check this one out. So now we're going to turn to the older Warner Archive releases that you should have on your radar. We are returning with another Michael Curtiz title, another Humphrey Bogart title, and we have Passage to Marseille. This is from 2015. Another Peter Lorre title too. So a lot of familiar names and faces with this title. This is a wartime tale. Bogart playing a Frenchman who gets rescued from a prison and tries to help out the war efforts by dispatching of some Nazis and stuff. This is told in a non-linear fashion. There are times where he's like recounting his story to people, and it's just kind of, it doesn't always work super effectively as kind of a simple narrative that's kind of like jumbled a little bit. It's still a good movie, but whenever you're reteaming a lot of the key members of Casablanca, you really need to come with your A game. And I think it's a little bit muddled in its execution while still being a perfectly solid movie that is still worth your time. This was from 2015, and that at that time, this was from a 2K scan of the Fine Grain Master Positive. This is a perfectly solid effort from the earlier days of Warner Archive. They have gotten better over the years, but even at this point, it's still a very, very good looking transfer. No obvious damage or anything like that. Nice encoding, runs at a healthy bit rate. Just a really solid, like I said, presentation. DTS 2.0 sound. You do get a nice array of special features that were carried over from the DVD, including the Warner Night at the Movies featurette, which is kind of like a 5 or 6 part, like multi-part special feature thing where you get like a trailer from a classic movie, a classic short, like a newsreel, all that kind of stuff. You also get a 17-minute featurette on the real life war stories around like this kind of time depicted in the movie. You have a gag reel on here from classic movies, just from a lot of different productions, which I loved seeing gag reels from classic movies. It's so surreal to see them kind of mess up and kind of like flub and curse and all that stuff. It's like beeped out curses, but it's really amusing. You also get a trailer. So if you like wartime tales, if you like Bogart, if you like Curtiz, if you like Peter Lorre, Passage to Marseille, worth checking out. And this is kind of my wartime section here. And my next war movie is Sergeant York, featuring Gary Cooper. Gary Cooper is another person we will be seeing from in a little bit. This is a release from 2020, and it is about the famous Tennessee war hero Alvin York, who as a youth was kind of rambunctious. Then he found religion, and then he was drafted into the army, and he was a pacifist, but then he kind of got convinced of the moral righteousness of participating in the war, and he was one of the like deadliest soldiers, and so, like, just like his kind of war efforts are legendary, of just like single-handedly taking like over 100 people like prisoner of war and stuff. It was wild. This is more so told from kind of like a propaganda-esque stance, but it is still an entertaining movie, and Gary Cooper does a very nice job. It is said that he was handpicked by the real life York, but Cooper, he what came to be one of our greatest performers of like these decades, and he does a really nice job over this very long movie. It's 2 hours and 14 minutes long, but it moves along at a good pace. Nice balance of domestic life up top and the war efforts in the latter half, and how just dealing with his moral code and just dealing with all that, it works quite well. This is, like I said, released in 2020. This was from a 4K restoration. That it's fantastic. It looks very good. Really great encoding, solid contrast, no blemishes. You do get a commentary track, a cartoon, a live action short, a 39-minute documentary on the real life York, and a trailer. This is from director Howard Hawks, and he did a really nice job with this one. And so if you're a fan, make sure to check that out. You also have people like Joan Leslie and Walter Brennan in here. Sergeant York from 2020, a solid release. Another wartime effort, but doesn't deal directly with war. It is Waterloo Bridge with Vivien Leigh and Robert Taylor. This is another 2020 release. This deals with a soldier played by Robert Taylor who meets a dancer played by Vivien Leigh, who they kind of strike up kind of a quick romance, and it leads to them wanting to get married. But he gets called off to war, and this is mostly about Vivien Leigh's character and how she reacts to being left alone while her romantic partner goes off to war, how she feels whenever it is reported that he is dead. And I won't spoil what happens after that, but it does spoil it in any description you will watch. But I went in blind, so I don't want to ruin it for you. And it's just kind of her contending with her lot in life and not knowing what to do when she is kind of left alone in a time when women weren't necessarily given a lot of opportunities to survive on their own in traditional ways. That's all I'll say. But I like this movie overall. I really did not like the ending, but overall it is a really good movie. I really love it because of Vivien Leigh's performance specifically. She does a fantastic job. This was after Gone with the Wind, but I think this is considered one of her better performances, maybe even better than Gone with the Wind for some people. It is a very good performance. It made me kind of very emotionally attached to her, so I did want the best for her character. This comes from a 4K restoration of the best surviving nitrate elements. They look very good. It has a classic Hollywood sheen that just shimmers on Blu-ray. This has a 1 hour radio adaptation of the story. I always love these this particular supplement, because listening to an old radio play, it really transports you back to a time like before, like we will never experience, most of us will never experience listening to radio play. So it's nice that Warner Archive and gives that kind of experience occasionally whenever they're available on these discs. And it also includes a trailer. So Waterloo Bridge, if you like a good wartime romantic melodrama, it's worth checking out. My final war movie, I do want to say Sergeant York was nominated for Best Picture, and so was this one, Battleground. 2 Best Picture nominees in this week's batch. So Battleground does come based on a true story. This isn't the most star-studded cast, but the most notable name is Van Johnson. You have John Hodiak, Ricardo Montalban, George Murphy. This is an unexpected Christmas movie if you want an extra non-traditional Christmas movie. They mention Christmas quite a bit. There is a tree at the beginning. It is a Christmas movie. But it is specifically about the Battle of Battleground and these soldiers who at this time are sent into war, and it's a very snowy terrain, and they're trying to hold off the forces that are coming during World War II, and just kind of the hell that they go through during this battle. And this one is really effective. I think this one does a nice job compared to some of the others of not being so sugarcoating of the more efforts that are harsh for these soldiers. I think it is an interesting depiction where you can see that war is hell through this, but a lot of movies that I think they were at the time were made to kind of reassure audiences. This was made at a time that it felt a little bit more reflective and just they could admit at least a little bit that war was not the greatest. But I like this quite a bit. It is a good wartime story. This was from 2017. This comes from a 4K scan of the fine grained Safety Master. Looks very nice. Really great black and white film. No blemishes. Just everything looks very nice. You do get a cartoon, a live action short, and a trailer. So Battleground, Best Picture nominee, worth checking out if you're a fan of war films or need a non-traditional Christmas movie. Going to a slight Western enclave, my first is, once again, with Gary Cooper. We have The Hanging Tree. This is a 2018 Blu-ray release, and I really liked this tale. Gary Cooper plays a doctor who it's given him a chance to kind of play a character who is not altogether virtuous, like compared to Sergeant York. He is kind of crusty. He has a past that is kind of haunts him. He has, whenever someone new comes into his life, he doesn't always treat them the best. But underneath everything, you can tell he is a good person. And you also have Maria Schell, Carl Malden, who plays a magnificent bastard, and then you also have Ben Piazza. So this is basically a tale of set around kind of the gold rush age. This haunted doctor, this woman who is, I believe, from Sweden, who is rescued whenever all of her traveling companions are murdered, and she kind of is the lone survivor, and her trying to make her way in this man's world, where all these men are trying to search for gold, and she herself starts to try to search for gold because she wants to stay around Gary Cooper's character. And just Carl Malden just being just the worst. And just I like this movie, but it also made me very stressed out because this has a perfect depiction of the helplessness you feel whenever mob mentality kind of really kicks in. And the finale of this movie is absolutely insane. There is a crazed preacher here played by George C. Scott. This was, I believe, one of his first films. He really got on my nerves and I wanted to punch him in the face, but it is effective and it is a very good movie. If you like a kind of a Western, but not a traditional Western, it's more of a gold rush Western, which I do quite enjoy. This is not a Warner Archive movie, but I love Paint Your Wagon, which is one of the most atypical Westerns ever. It's a Western musical. But Hanging Tree is also kind of good in this Gold Rush era. So, like I said, 2018 release. This coming from a 4K scan of the original camera negative. Holds up very well. Color film, nice vibrant colors, no blemishes, no compression artifacts or anything like that. Just a really nice looking transfer and a trailer. No other special features besides a trailer, but that is a solid enough release for me. Going more between The Hanging Tree and Paint Your Wagon, on that kind of timeline, you have The Life and Times of Judge Roy Bean. This is an atypical Western from John Huston, starring Paul Newman. This one is wild. It's more like a Western satire. This is Paul Newman just being zany and silly. He plays a character, kind of an ne'er-do-well, who goes into kind of the unsettled part of the Western territory where lawlessness abides, and he kind of sets up his own town where he is the judge, and he kind of creates the rules and all the people who kind of come to his town that has to abide by his strange rules. It's very odd. I believe he's a real life figure, from what I could tell, because I think there's been other movies that were taken more seriously that were based on this character, but this is more just a kind of satirical, zany ride. Paul Newman is fantastic in this. He has like kind of like a boyish grin and kind of like hyperactive personality that works very well for this character, who he has a very interesting sense of justice. That's all I'll say. But it's hilarious. It's one of those renegade westerns that you would find kind of like McCabe and Mrs. Miller, that if you like that, The Life and Times of Judge Roy Bean, very much worth checking out. You have Ava Gardner here. This was a 2018 release. This was from a 2K scan of the Inner Positive. Looks very nice, rich, colorful. No major blemishes lingering, just a really nice remaster restoration. The sound is solid. This has only a trailer, but this movie is strong enough. If you like an atypical Western, check out The Life and Times of Judge Roy Bean. Going to something a little bit different. This is the closest I get to probably legitimately celebrating Noirvember, the celebration of film noir in November. This is the Yakuza from Sidney Pollack, who I love. Sidney Pollack, and this is an interesting movie. This stars the great Robert Mitchum, great old school Western star, noir, just Hollywood star. Kind of in his kind of later years, and he is an American detective who is sent to Japan, where he has kind of a history to kind of investigate this conflict that's happening in between these Yakuza clans, and trying to figure out what is happening, how things can be avoided, like from escalating, and just all the mysteries that are surrounding this kind of dramatic confrontation between these opposing forces. There are some, with an American take on this kind of culture, there are things that don't quite line up perfectly, but I think this is handled well enough that it's not a complete disgrace. It's a pretty entertaining movie. Robert Mitchum does a really good performance here. You have this from a screenplay by Paul Schrader and Robert Towne. Robert Towne wrote Chinatown. Paul Schrader's a great screenwriter and filmmaker in his own right. He did Taxi Driver screenplay. This is just a really solid film. It has some noir elements and some classic Japanese crime film elements. So overall, good film. This was released in 2017 from a 2K scan of the Inner Positive. Once again, really nice, solid encode, no major complaints. Commentary track from Sidney Pollack, archival commentary track, 20-minute featurette on the making of this film, and a trailer. So the Yakuza, worth checking out in my opinion. And my final film, we got another silly one. We have like the prototypical buddy cop film. We have Freebie and the Bean with Alan Arkin and James Caan. Who does not love Alan Arkin and James Caan? Both sadly no longer with us, but I love them so much I had to check out this movie. I loved reading about this, that they initially developed this as a serious kind of crime cop drama, and they kind of evolved into a more kind of silly, kind of almost slapsticky comedy, and they didn't really know what they had made by the end of it, but what they had made was kind of the early bones and like archetype for a buddy cop movie. I love the banter between these two. That's often very funny. The crime itself is kind of inconsequential compared to what these two are doing. There's some issues with the crime from some very kind of regressive depictions of some like LGBT communities. So just if that, I want to issue a trigger warning for that. But it is not as egregious as certain movies from this time period. It's more like a fleeting moment, but wanted to mention it anyway. Overall, pretty decent movie. It's not a classic. There's been better buddy cop movies once the formula was established, but if you like these actors, I think it is still worth checking out. Just to see them on screen just bouncing off one another in an amusing way. This comes from 2017 from a 2K scan of the Inner Positive. Pretty solid presentation. This is from the 70s, so it has a gritty look to it, but natural grit. And 2.0 DTS sound and a trailer. No other special features, but overall worth checking out. So that is my show. That is a baker's dozen of Warner Archive releases that should be on your radar. If there's anything that stood out to you, let me know in the comments. Let me know what you're planning on adding to your collection, or anything you want to know more about, anything like that, what you want me to talk about more in the future. I'm open to all feedback. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the Geek Vibes Nation YouTube channel. Make sure to share this with anyone who you just like, because if you like them, you want them to know about all the latest physical media releases, and that's what I'm here for. I will be back again next week with another exciting slate of movies. I appreciate you checking in every single week, but until next time, enjoy these movies.